Welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Bratt, and this week's guest is 1998 Van Buren graduate Lee Salisbury, who is the founder and chief creative officer for UnitOneNine, a boutique creative agency. In this episode, Lee shares how his life looks much different today from how it looked when he started his business, how he experienced the reality of fake it until you make it, the opportunity people have today to start a business with low risk, and much more. Whether you are interested in a career as a founder or designer or still exploring your options, I hope that what Lee shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Lee, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd like to start by finding out how a typical day for you has changed from the start of your business to today.
Okay, so there's probably a very, very long-winded answer that surrounds it. I started my business when I was 22. I was in school at Ohio State University for design. So back then, working in my apartment with three other people with my desk looked like an entirely different process than when I moved to Chicago and got an office for 10 years. I had a bunch of people that worked for me and a pool table and all of that. So I think for me, part of the reason why I got into what I am currently doing is the fact that I get to change things up all the time. It's not a consistent go in, do A, then do B, then do C, and so on. So
Right.
Quite a lot of it of a change.
Right. You talked a little bit about being in Chicago, being at Ohio State. When you were a student at Van Buren, what were your career plans?
So I had two very distinct career plans. One was the music route. I auditioned for MIT out in LA. I got in, and then I also applied for Purdue University for engineering. And I think that was the only school that I applied to. I know that they tell you to apply to a lot of them, but I'm not that guy. I'm more like, no, I'm going to do this one. And the reason why I didn't go to LA and do the music thing was because I didn't think that I would fit on a tour bus because I'm 6'6", and I know that that's like insane. But I was touring with my buddy's band at the end of last year on said tour bus, exactly like what I thought. And I did fit, but my head and my feet both hit the bunk at the very end. So, it's one of those things.
Okay. Now, the MIT, I don't think I've ever heard of that. What does that stand for?
It's the Musicians Institute. It's
Okay.
like Juilliard, but for rock.
Okay. And I'm assuming that's fairly competitive to get into that.
Yeah, very, very much. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. So on LinkedIn, it says that you did go to Purdue. How long were you there, and what then led you to make that transition to Ohio State and to visual design?
So I went to Purdue for 2.5 years, and while I was in school, I think what I realized is that you need to think about what the job actually entails, not like what picture you paint in your head, but like what are the jobs that you're actually going to be doing, and do you want to do that day in and day out? And if you don't, then in my case, I decided to realize that, be real with myself, talk to my parents just a little bit about it, but I had already set up, I'm doing this. I'm going to move to Ohio State and apply for their extremely hard to get into design school there. And I moved mid-year, and I mean, everything made no sense to other people, or some other people at the time, because I was moving from like one of the best engineering schools in the US to a liberal arts school in the state that I was born in.
Right.
So it was kind of like a different, a different song, a different path. But I knew that it was going to be good for me, mainly centered around the fact that I found myself to be too social to be an engineer, which is, for me, it's not for everybody. There are certainly social engineers, but in general, it's not something that engineers are known to be overtly social.
was that an internship or something where you went into the field at Purdue
No,
and no, okay,
no.
just the
It was
general
kind of a
atmosphere.
realization, like going through classes and being like, oh, so this is what I'm doing now. What I would be doing is X. And I think what it really like cemented it was as you get like freshman year, especially in Purdue, Ohio State, whatever, big schools, to then you move to the second year, and the number of people that you're going to school with gets a lot smaller. And then you start to see like the concentration of those type of people. And nothing wrong with it, but it's just I didn't see myself uh working in that world, right?
Right.
And that's better to know that then
Yes,
than to
absolutely.
wait 10 years, and then be like, well, time to go back to school to
Right,
something else that, is
right,
going to be a
right.
lot harder then. So yeah.
Now, were you involved with art classes here at Van Buren? And that's what kind of led you to the visual arts or
Oddly enough, no. Mrs. Vanden Enden was our art teacher. She was awesome, but I never had time to take art because the whole like way that you have to schedule classes, and I was in choir and I was in band because I was like really into music in general, like, and it
right,
was like super fun for me, but I didn't have the opportunity to take all three. You just couldn't do that, I
right.
just, it wasn't an option. So I didn't take any design classes. Actually, when I applied for Ohio State, they they took 16 students and 190 people applied the year that I got in. That you have to do like a very specific test. They're like, you have to draw like a hat and an apple and a vase or something with charcoal. And I didn't know how to do that. Like I was literally like, and this is like before YouTube. So
Right.
I wasn't able to pop in and be like, oh, this is, so I'm going to the library, getting drawing books, trying to realize how I'm supposed to use these materials to draw, which I was never formally trained like at any level, right?
Right.
Like I don't know, and was able to mimic enough to be able to showcase that I was able to see the world in a specific way, which is really the nature of that task. It's
Right.
not like who can paint something or who can draw something that looks like a photograph. That wasn't the goal.
Right. Well, I think that's interesting, for students who are sitting here again saying, well, if I don't have this experience, I could never go into that career field. You are living proof that, again, you talked about Mrs. Van over in the elementary, but beyond elementary art, you really hadn't had formal training, and yet you still had those aptitudes that contributed to that. So I think that's really interesting. So, over the course of your career, you've worked for some other people, and obviously you have your own business. You worked for the Scott's Company at one time, Nestle, two very large companies. Had an internship with AOL Time Warner, apprenticeship in Switzerland. How have all of those things contributed to help get you to where you are today as the owner of your own design business?
I think what it did is it honed my ability to deal with people as well as to learn what taste is, and that taste isn't one color of the rainbow. Like I have my preferential color of jelly bean, like most people do. It's usually not black. Mine's red. I eat black jelly beans. It's fine,
Yeah.
but like it's something it's super important for when you get a new client, or when I'm going through the selection process if I want to work with somebody, is like finding out like what are their needs, right? That's not just one type of look, right? Like there's lots of different cars for lots of different types of people and lots of different personas that go with those. It's the same thing with taste in general. I think the working for like small stints, so like the Nestle and the Scott's thing were contract work while I was in college. Not internships, but like they had work that needed to be done. They were looking for somebody to like come in for a set 3 months, 6 months type of thing. So that was, a unique thing to like be able to have an insider look at like how, corporations work, big and small. And then moving into the design job in Switzerland, that was an entirely different thing, different culture, different language, different world, moved there before I had a cell phone. I mean, it was just like
Yeah.
a lot of it was like, okay, well, let's just try, like it's about just getting out there, getting outside of your comfort zone and seeing how you swim, right? So I think the perspectives that were gained through every interaction with clients, whether they're big or whether they're small, has been very, very beneficial. And realizing that this whole notion of like fake it till you make it is like actually real. Like that's like a thing. And then you fake it till you make it till you fake it till you make it till you fake it till you make it type of thing. And I think that that's something that's like beneficial. And I kind of wish that somebody would have told me that, because I thought that it was like telling myself these stories to like, I don't know, that it wouldn't work, but then it ended up working out like kind of a little bit too well. I mean, it not in a bad way, but like
Right.
I got that first big client, and then I got the second and third and fourth, and these were like clients that weren't, local or regional. They were like billion-dollar companies that had entrusted me because I had already worked with ba 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 in the Rolodex, so to speak, and it's all about trust, right? And then you have to feel good about those things, and yeah,
Right.
it's multidimensional for sure.
Well, and you obviously did a good job creating those products. And again, that built that confidence. And something else that might have led to was you becoming a member of the Forbes Agency Council. You've been part of that for almost 10 years. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with that and what that means for you? I know I've seen a couple of your articles on LinkedIn. Um, what has that led or contributed to your career?
I mean, I think that the Forbes Agency Council stuff is, I mean, it's a good place to have like talking head perspective type of things, which I think is unique. I actually, it's not my format. And the first article that I wrote for Forbes, I don't know, 3 months ago or whatever that was, it took me outside of my comfort zone. And as part of like, if that's what I'm preaching to other people, like, don't stay complacent, do new things, new experiences, don't keep doing the same stuff. Like, that's going to be what ruins you. I have to do that too. So it was kind of like it pushed me to get into that, realm. Now,
Mhm.
how did I get involved with it? When I was in Chicago running my agency, it ended up being where I got asked to join through like their people like reaching out, because you have to have a company that makes a certain amount of money and you have to be in this da, 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 da. So like there's a bunch of different groups that I've been in through the years that are like, it's not professional development, but it's like an organization that's tangential to what you're doing anyways. And I just think it's a nice place to be able to talk amongst your peers, because you know I run my business by myself. I don't have a partner or anything. So a lot of times like being able to talk to other people who are in very similar perspectives is a nice, add.
Right. With your experience of starting a business, what advice would you give to someone who's considering doing that and thinking about your own path? Are there things that you would have done differently if you were to do it all over again? What are your thoughts?
Um, I'm not a no regrets, no regrets. That would be the title of this one. Lee says no regrets. Um, I I won't go back and do anything over because we can't, right? But what I would say is from this point out, I think leveraging AI is like a no-brainer. If you're not doing that, then you might own a restaurant or something that doesn't isn't like, direct in the AI zone. But I mean,
Mhm.
realizing that this super intelligence is going to become like more intelligent than anything that's ever been around is just like kind of like a hyper shift. But it's very similar to when I was working at AOL, and that was during the dial up and ADSL and like slower internet worlds, right? So that big shift to now this big shift is an entirely different world. So I think leveraging current technologies and getting nerdy at these things and understanding like what does AI automation look like? How can I solve if I'm a problem solver? There's a lot of people that are like, I consider myself a problem solver, right? Like if you're a problem solver, get out there, get on YouTube, look up Zapier, make.com, N8N, and find people's problems on Reddit or whatever, make it once for them, and then duplicate that 30, 40, 80 times X, and you'll be able to find out that you can really multiply your ability to generate more benefit for companies than what you might think of if you're just like, oh, I just need to think of the perfect idea. Like the perfect idea doesn't exist. That's stupid. Don't wait. Like continuous improvement beats delayed perfection every time.
Right.
And I think that's like some sage wisdom that somebody told me, and I think is a wonderful quote, because it's super helpful. It's just like, just keep doing that. Now don't be dumb about the approach, or haphazard about it, but like go at it in a smart type of way. And then if you can gather data about that, great, rock and roll. But the advice, I think that the believing in yourself and the fake it till you make it, that's probably the biggest advice. And if possible, if you can find anybody and everybody to talk about what you want to do, to be able to get perspective from other people that have done similar stuff, that will certainly help. Because I didn't have any of that. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have somebody to bounce things off of. I just kind of like, it's a grip it and rip it strategy. And do good work and be a good person is really like the center of that. But you have to have a certain amount of like personality type to be able to be that, like, I'm just gonna like, because sometimes it's not the right business at the right time,
Right.
for the right audience, and sometimes it's just a mixture of those three that it would be if it was a different audience or a different time or a different product. So
Right.
that would be my take.
So a lot of factors play into the success of any business idea, et cetera. And I love your idea, obviously going out and getting experience, but also having that mentor can also be very, very useful. As you look at your career and founding your own business and acting now as the chief creative officer, what are some of the most difficult aspects of owning a business, and what are some of the most rewarding?
So difficult. So depending upon how you set things up, you can be the part that messes it all up. So it's bad. I mean, I think it's good too, because it's like your own destiny. But for a lot of people, for people that are risk adverse, it is definitely the number one thing that people are like, I don't want to do that because I could fail. Well, the way that I look at it is, well, I still could go get a real job, right? I mean, that could be a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't want to put myself in a financial situation, back then when I was 22, or now when I'm proper old, to like make things like, I don't feel comfortable about these things. So I think it's all about balance, right? Like you can't only focus on X all the time, or your job all the time, or the business all the time, or the opportunity. Sometimes you got to get out there, test it, do pre-orders, see if people would pay for your consulting services, or your window washing business, or your dog walking thing, or your AI automation, blah, 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 blah. Give it to people, let them use it, then be able to go back in and be able to see it from a different perspective. And I think that testing has never been easier than now, right? We have more tools to make all that stuff way, way easier, to be able to get really, really good feedback. And that's why I say the pre-order thing is really wonderful. Like, you want to start a new clothing brand? Great. Don't go and buy 400 pieces of clothes where you've got, 80 for each size and blah, 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 blah. No, do a direct to garment thing, use Printful, hook that into Etsy, and then you have your own on-demand flywheel where you've got the thing, and it might be for Van Buren Black Nights. And guess what? You don't have to print it. You don't have to make that mug. You don't have to make that bag. And they just send you checks. So it's like, it's looking at it, I think, from different angles, and realizing that you kind of, something I wish somebody would have told me is, you kind of have to ignore the people that are around you and trust yourself at some point. Numerous different people that, when I was in high school, I had one person tell me that I wasn't smart enough to get into Purdue. I will not disclose what that person's job title was. But what I will say is they were a teacher. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, intellect is like irrelevant at some level, because the other option is you don't have to go to college. You can educate yourself with just YouTube and become a wonderful whatever it is, making pergolas or fixing electronics, or like
Right.
things that like people wish was more available. Like those are going to become even more. And as we continue down this AI path, like all jobs are going to change. All. And anybody who says that they all won't change, I just don't trust them, because it's going to change.
Right.
And that's okay, as long as we kind of like are understanding what we want, right? Because we have to be a little bit selfish on it too. Like I was selfish, started my own thing. Now, it doesn't mean it's scary or that I'm a selfish person. It's just like you have to believe in yourself at some level to make that jump.
Yeah. So I think you're the negative or the difficult aspect, the idea that you have to be, willing to take some risks. But I like how, that's also kind of the positive, that there's no better time to take some risk, with hopefully not too much, and you can still test what you're trying to do and get those experiences. And yeah, so perfect. As we wrap up, and you think about, and I feel like you've already talked about some of these things, the fake it till you make it. What are the things, or what is the thing that you know now about careers that you wish you had known when you were in high school?
That playing video games matters, that sports don't, that realizing that being part of a team does not mean that organized athletics is the way forward. I think very specifically on that point, there are so many people that are so sweaty about getting their kids into some thing that is going to occupy all of their time, because kids used to be involved with multiple different sports. And now it's like, one sport, you've got to be really good at lacrosse or soccer, this. I think realizing that like your interests outside of school and being a problem solver and somebody who is thinking about things in a wider view does not necessarily have to be like somebody that that you're friends with, that your family has. Like, oh, well, I can't be an engineer because no engineers are in my family. No, that's not true.
Right.
That's not true at all. Like, it's okay, realizing that if you want to go to school to be a welder or a mechanic or a farmer or all this other stuff, it's totally cool. Like, find out what you're passionate about, because you're going to have a much, much better time. There's a ton of my friends that are in industries that do not like their job. I won't say hate, because it's not a thing. I mean, there's every job sucks somehow. But I think that stepping back a little bit and looking at it without blinders on, because I think that the blinders are kind of like the pressure that goes into it. And I'm not upset that I went to engineering school and spent a bunch of money out of state, because by the time I was able to graduate high school, I knew that I wanted to be an engineer. By the time I was able to graduate college, I had, $100 and some $1,000 of student loan debt that I was able to pay off in 9 months, because I started my business. I knocked out a bunch of client stuff. I made a ton of money on top of that. And nobody knew. I think that's the unique thing too. I wasn't going and buying a bunch of stuff to make me feel good. I was buckling down and reinvesting that back into the flywheel, and betting on myself, is really the long and the short.
Well, Lee, I really appreciate you sharing all of this. Very interesting story. I hope that some people watch this and listen to it and learn from your experiences, and hopefully they might reach out to you, connect on LinkedIn, et cetera, to continue learning more. So thank you very much, and good luck as you continue your career journey.
Thanks for having me.
If you liked this Joust About Careers episode, you can explore previous episodes and highlights to learn about even more careers of Van Buren graduates. To be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with us, and we hope you will continue to prepare for your future by learning just about careers.